The shitter.
Right?
I used to have a friend of mine, whenever she would like describe, she would say, tell me what you've seen. And she would see movies all the time too. And I said, I saw this shitter. and then I said, well, I saw this shitter. And I was like, and the whole time I was watching this movie, that's what I was thinking, shitter. This is a terrible film, man.
I think that's putting it mildly, really. This is one of those, it's one of those films that's so terrible that it almost comes back around to being watchable. You know what I mean? Where you tell your friends, I don't even know how to tell you why all the ways in which this was terrible. You just have to see it for yourself.
It already gets you exhausted, right? When you want to tell somebody how bad it is. This movie has been in the shitter and back. Looking at the film, I was like, wow, how old is this? Because look at Jonah Hill. He is huge in this.
No doubt. I thought it was called The Sitter because that's all he does is sit.
Yeah.
He's so fat.
He's huge. And the thing is that you can really tell because more than likely you're going to get a trailer for 21 Jump Street where he looks like he's been deflated. He doesn't look good. He almost looks unhealthy, like he's dying of some incurable disease.
Well, this is like,
it's nuts when you see the movie. You're like, okay, how old is this, and how long has the studio been like, keeping this in the back shelf?
Yeah, this is pre-fat Jonah Hill. It's like
this goes beyond.
It's like when he was way fatter than the fat that we even used to seeing. We're like, damn, I forgot he used to be that big.
Yeah,
and bad idea showing a trailer for 21 Jump Street before they show this movie, because
creepy.
that just goes to show you how long the studio said, no, we can't release this yet.
And yet that was the least of the bad ideas associated with this film. I don't even know where to begin. Where do you start? Is it the way that it seemed like it was edited by Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah.
That it just edited so much that it doesn't even make sense at points? And this is a rated R comedy. Is it bad because it's got a sitter who they try and tell you at the beginning, you're just such a nice guy, who proceeds to take this group of very small children into the city on a cocaine run?
Yeah. That's what's so crazy about this movie. I'm not offended, but I'm just confused that, wow, you had to go that far to be a black comedy where you made Jonah Hill a loser who decides to like steal these kids their parents' car while he's babysitting them, and take them out on a quest for cocaine that he's looking for his bitch ass drug addict girlfriend. And that's not even the most confusing about it. It's like, see, this is one of those comedies where somebody had a premise that was so dark. They're like, hey, man, you want to be really edgy? Let's have Jonah Hill take these kids out looking for cocaine. But then nobody thought what to do after that.
I think somebody was on coke and watching Adventures in Babysitting and said, oh, God, we can totally do this except make it about coke.
Yeah. We have kids running around with a coke head, and you take them to bars. You got gang fights. You got a guy chasing kids with a gun. I mean, even though that happened in Adventures in Babysitting, but it was done well.
It made sense there because the character actually had sympathetic motivation. She was in a situation she had no choice but to be in. Here, you've got Jonah Hill, who's like, just fine, could have stayed home with these kids. Yeah, they're kind of brats, but they're not like the worst kids ever. Well, maybe the Mexican kid is, but he's pretty bad. He's blowing shit up all over the place. But actually, he's El Salvadorian.
He's from El Salvador, which he was. I mean, that's the other thing about this movie. This movie, the stereotypes in this movie are so one-dimensional that they become monotypes because they're so
sense.
badly written, and they're there for the obvious joke. Oh, look at that Mexican kid. Look how funny he talks, and oh, look, there's black people. Look how crazy they are with their thuggish.
So much that doesn't make sense. Like, okay, so you talk about Adventures in Babysitting, and reminded of the scene where she goes into the blues bar and wins over this whole crowd of black people by getting up there and singing blues with the kids. And they're like, that was really funny. It was pretty brave of you to get up there. All right. And you're like, okay, I can kind of buy that because it was cute. Here, Jonah Hill goes into the big bar full of like hip black people and wins them over by talking like a wigger.
Yeah,
I don't really know what just happened.
That's what's so bad about this movie is that, outside of its premise where they think that, oh, we're so shocking, we can just get by on that, they had nothing to do after that. It's one of those films where when they don't have an idea, they just choose to put these characters on a night. There's what you doing, Dr. Doom?
She's attacking me.
Is she still attacking your balls?
She's going after them with those. Like I said, this is the one who edited this film because her nails are just crazy.
After I get through editing Cyrus's balls, I'm going to go edit the center. No, for some reason, I hate to stop the podcast, but for some reason, when Cyrus sits over there, this cat likes to come over here and play keyboard on Cyrus's balls.
I tell you what, they're just that big.
I don't know. Do you want that on purpose? Do you sprinkle catnip on your groin area when you
sat him out? Got it so big, I got to take him around with a wheelbarrow. Excuse me.
You got legs wide open there.
You need a ball babysitter.
Yeah, sit these balls over here. But you know what,
man? As long as it's not Jonah Hill.
Yeah, when they don't know what to do with it, it's just another example of a film where they had these characters go on these random adventures. Now, there's no real story here. You can tell that somehow they just said, hey, you know what'd be funny? If we had them go here and this happened. Oh, you know what else would be funny? If they went here and this happened. Hey, you know what? You know, these are a bunch of white kids and one El Salvadorian kid. We'd be funny if they go in the wrong part of town and run into scary black people. Now, how many times have we seen that in a movie? Oh, they're going to get stopped by the police when they have like illegal drugs, or this guy's been in a lot of trouble tonight. You know, how many times have we seen that in a movie? There's all these random things that it's bad enough that they don't have a story for it, but these are gags that we've seen in some form or another in other films.
We've seen them to death. With this movie, though, it's like as soon as you're about to like get into something that resembles a fucking plot, the movie cuts.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like as soon as somebody's like, "You're not a bad kid," and they're in the car. Well, they're in the car running away from whoever they encountered in the first place.
I feel like I would love to see the I guess director's cut or whatever of this.
Do you?
But I wonder if there even is anymore, because there's no way, like the script, the way it's built, that there's missing scenes that would make it better. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yet it's still so goddamn ridiculously choppy that it is kind of like, I felt almost like I was entering into a dream watching this film.
A fucking terrible dream, a bad dream.
It felt like a dream, the way one thing stops and then you're suddenly somewhere else entirely, and you have no idea how you got there, but you just go, well, no, yeah, I'm here.
No, that's what, you know, and it's one, I mean, you could make this possibly work. Like sometimes situations don't really have to make sense, or they don't have to segue in each other that is smooth. I mean, you can have that happen if your characters are likable. But first of all, they introduced Jonah Hill, who I don't care how nice the guy is. The guy's kind of an asshole. I mean, the guy just leeches off his mother all day. He don't want to get a job. He's spoiled, and it's one thing to be an asshole, but then you know he's a loser on top of that. He rides his bike everywhere. You know, I mean, he's
irresponsible to the point of being a criminal.
Well, this guy, yeah, he said he's going to jail. I was like, man, you know, this guy, he hasn't earned the right to be a criminal. He hasn't earned the right to be, you know, an asshole. He's still kind of a geeky, nerdy type. I was like, you ain't cool enough to do all this shit with the attitude that you have. And then these fucking kids in this movie, man, I'm looking at the names of these kids right now, who the kids are actually, they're all right. The kids are Slater, Blythe, and Rodrigo.
And they're all grown up now.
Yeah, I know. They're like in college by now. But
they're all doing coke, yeah.
If you go by the Jonah Hill fat scale of time, and I'm going to let you guess which one is Rodrigo, by the way. And they're played by Max Records, Landry Bender, and Kyle Bunbury.
Wait, the guy's name is Max Records?
And Max Records,
is he a rap star now?
If he's not a rap star, he needs to own the next chain of like whatever the form of music's going to be in the future. You know?
That chain's going to close real quick. Yeah. He's selling records.
Oh, and that is the kid that was in Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but those kids, man, it's like it's one thing to hate Jonah Hill, then you hate his girlfriend who's just a bitch to him, and it's like, man, maybe these kids will make a difference when they come up. Those kids are some of the most badass kids that I've seen in movies that I hate to hate children, you know, because I like children, but I hate these bitches here.
Well, it's funny because like I hated the kids the least of anyone in this film, which doesn't tell you anything about me liking the kids per se. It's just everyone else was so much more horrible that you at least give them a break because, well, they are kids. But you're right. They're just like each has a one-note joke around them. like the little girl is like obsessed with being a celebutante and acts like a little stuck up little prissy miss all day. And so what? There's nothing else, but that's all she's got. The other kid is like totally neurotic and like is afraid of everything and has to take his pills.
Yeah, that's
and
the boy.
That's all he's got.
Yeah.
And then you got the Mexican the robot kid.
That kid didn't know who the fuck he was playing.
Yeah, who was just like, okay, don't worry about it. You're just like
just be Mexican.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Right.
you know what they did, and that's another thing that we see in movies. The kid was obsessed with explosives.
Yeah.
And and they didn't even know what to do with that kid. You thought he was going to be like a little Scarface kind of kid, a little dangerous kid. Then he turned into a brat, breaking things and looking at Jonah Hill like, you clean up. And then he was like obsessed with explosives. And it's like, narrow it down to one shitty thing that this kid does.
Well, the worst thing is that they try to give him a story that he can't even finish because the goddamn camera cuts right when he's about to say, why he's so pissed all the time and why he's blowing up shit.
Yeah.
And the camera's like, all right, we got to keep going. We got to keep this movie moving. I mean, we got bills to pay. And
seriously, this ain't a documentary, kid. Get the fuck out of here. Just look cute.
Well, you guys are talking about everyone you hate. I'm like, you should be hating on this goddamn director because this should have been an Alan Smithy film. I don't know how anyone, even the director or even the studio,
you know who directed
could
this?
look. Yeah, I do know who directed this.
No, I don't.
Tell him.
David Gordon Green, the guy who directed Pineapple Express. I never liked Pineapple Express myself.
I liked it. I didn't love it. Some people were crazy about it. I was like, okay, it's all right.
Pineapple Express was, I called it sloppy at the time. And
shit,
I kind of have to. I still don't like Pineapple Express, but Pineapple Express. I'm sorry. Okay, this movie here is sloppy.
Pineapple Express
this is beyond sloppy. I mean,
Pineapple Express is like the flawlessness of math compared to this, which is just like someone took a bunch of plots and cut them up and threw them on the floor and just started picking shit up. It's like you said, have people improv comedy scenes lately? Like that's the big thing. Okay, here's the setup. Now go. This feels like a movie that they just said, here's the outside plot. We're starting with Jonah Hill's babysitter. These are the kids. These are their defaults. Now go. And the entire film was made up on whatever they drove past. Yeah, look, let's film something there and just make it up.
Oh yeah. This is the writer and the director taking a shit on the floor and trying to piece something up to resemble a movie.
Yeah.
And the worst about it is that they can't even figure out what fucking time period they want this movie to be in, because as the movie starts, you hear all this like old hip hop music from like the 80s. And when you're watching the film, you're like, okay, well, is this set in the 80s or what's going on here? Because when they're watching TV, you see like old 80s TV shows or you'll see an 80s movie, and then you realize, oh, wait, they're using cell phones. Oh, they're watching that old 80s TV show on a big flat screen TV.
Probably because they're trying to connect themselves to Adventures of Babysitting, which is a bad idea.
When you have a director or producer, someone who's from a certain period, like the 80s or the early 90s, for some reason they think it's cool to put the soundtrack of their lives in the film.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they don't realize, like, okay, playing like Biz Markie, you got what I need, or Slick Rick, the Far Side is like, and ain't got shit to do whatever is happening in this movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
Jonah Hill's not listening to that.
Yeah, he's not even listening to it.
Well, come on. It was obviously a fantasy anyway. I mean, right off the bat, he's like, the movie opens with him going down on a hot chick. And this is Jonah Hill at his fattest. This is Jonah Hill when he was still working as the Goodyear blimp during the Super Bowl.
But you say like his head would have crushed up pelvis if he just rested his head on top of it. That's how fat he is.
And then later, there's an even hotter chick who just thinks he's cool out of nowhere. There's nothing to do with anything except that they had to find a way to give him a back door to get away from the shitty girl he was dating.
Oh yeah, no,
it's a Hollywood wet dream is all it is.
Oh yeah,
it's all it is.
But that's the way this movie is. Everything happens by coincidence throughout the course of the night when Jonah Hill is like trying to, when he's on this adventure to find cocaine.